I'm sorry, ma'am. I don't see any reservation under your name.
I booked directly with your hotel.
This seating area is for registered guests.
I am a registered guest.
Marcus, I think you should come.
I'm 17 minutes away.
I'm not going anywhere.
You moved her bag? Sir, no, you already did. Every month, your company pays rent to my grandmother.
I deserve thy own this building or not.
Don't forget to subscribe to our channel to continue the story. At Black Voice Stories, every story reveals a deeper truth about life, courage, and humanity. Subscribe now, and let's continue this incredible journey together.
3 black Escalades rolled down Meridian Avenue and stopped in a perfect line outside the hotel entrance. The engines did not cut off. The windows were so dark you could not see a thing inside. The rear door of the middle vehicle opened first. A man stepped out, 32 years old, 6'4", a charcoal suit that moved with him like a second skin. He straightened his cuffs, scanned the entrance of the Caldwell Grand, and started walking. He did not look at his phone. He did not check his watch. Men who own things rarely do. Inside the hotel lobby, a 71-year-old woman sat alone in a corner armchair. Her hands were folded in her lap. There was no coffee cup in front of her, no magazine open on the cushion beside her, no half-eaten plate of anything. They had made sure of that. Her coat was gray wool, slightly faded at the elbows. Her shoes were flat brown leather, worn smooth at the heel. She wore no rings except a thin gold band on her left hand. She was not crying. She had already done that. She had given this lobby enough of her tears an hour ago, and she was not prepared to give it any more. The man walked through the revolving door. The morning traffic noise of downtown Nashville rushed in for exactly 1 second, and then went quiet. Every head in the lobby turned. The woman at the concierge desk looked up and felt something shift in the air, the way air shifts before weather changes, because the man was not looking around the lobby. He was walking directly toward the corner armchair, like he had been given coordinates. If you have ever watched someone underestimate the wrong person, stay right where you are. Subscribe right now and turn on notifications, because what is about to happen in this lobby will follow you for the rest of the week. I promise you that. 3 hours earlier, the lobby of the Caldwell Grand was buzzing with checkout traffic. Business travelers rolling suitcases. A bride and her bridesmaids crossing to the elevator in matching robes. The concierge desk had a short line. The marble floors caught the morning light and threw it back in long gold strips. A small woman in a gray wool coat came through the revolving door and stopped for a moment to let the cold follow her in. Her name was Dorothy Callahan, 71 years old, 5'1", slight frame, the kind of posture that comes not from vanity but from 71 years of deciding not to shrink. Her hair was white and close-cropped. Her eyes were dark brown and completely steady. She carried a worn leather tote bag on one shoulder, and she moved through the lobby the way someone moves who has been in a great many rooms and knows that rooms do not define her. She was in Nashville visiting her great-granddaughter's school recital that evening. She had landed at BNA at 10:23 that morning on a direct flight from Chicago, and the plan had been simple. Check in early, if the room was ready, set down her bag, and find somewhere warm to sit and have a cup of tea before the afternoon. She was not asking for anything complicated. She was 71 years old, and her knees ached in cold weather, and she just wanted somewhere to sit down. She walked to the front desk. 2 agents were working. One was finishing a call. The other, a man named Brandon Hewitt, 29 years old, looked up and let his eyes do their quick calculation. Gray coat, worn shoes, no rolling suitcase, tote bag on the shoulder. His customer service expression did not fully arrive. "Can I help you?" Dorothy Callahan placed her hands flat on the counter. "Yes, my name is Dorothy Callahan. I have a reservation for 3 sites starting today." Brandon tapped the keyboard. He looked at the screen. He tapped again. He made a small sound that was not quite a word. "I'm not seeing anything under that name." Dorothy opened her tote and pulled out a printed confirmation page. The paper was crisp. She had printed it the evening before, which is something people of a certain age do because they have learned not to trust the cloud with things that matter. She slid it across the counter. Brandon looked at it. He turned it slightly. He frowned at the screen again. "This confirmation number isn't pulling up in our system. It may have been a third-party booking issue." It was booked directly through your website, Dorothy said. The confirmation email came from this hotel's address. Brandon's expression settled into the particular configuration of unhelpfulness that passes for professionalism in certain hotels. A flat smile, slightly tilted head, eyes that have already moved on. I understand your frustration. Unfortunately, without the room appearing in our system, I can't check you in. I'd recommend contacting the third-party site you used. It was not a third-party site. Brandon said nothing. Dorothy looked at him for a moment. Then she said, "Is there a manager available?" "Mr. Hargrove is in a meeting. He won't be available until 11:30. It was 10:47 in the morning. Dorothy nodded slowly. "Then I'll wait." She stepped away from the counter and found the corner armchair near the window, the one with a direct sight line to both the front desk and the entrance. She sat down. She placed her tote on the floor beside her feet. She folded her hands in her lap. She waited. 12 minutes passed. A couple in their 40s came to the front desk. Brandon greeted them with a full smile and both eyes present. He checked them in inside of 3 minutes. Their room was ready. He offered them a complimentary upgrade. Dorothy watched. She did not say anything. 21 minutes. A man in workout clothes, earbuds in, baseball cap pulled low, came to the desk. Brandon checked him in as well. No reservation visible on screen. Brandon made one quick call to someone in the back and had it resolved in 90 seconds. Dorothy watched. She said nothing. 38 minutes. A woman at the concierge desk named Maya Reeves, 24 years old, had been watching Dorothy from across the lobby since she sat down. Maya had seen the interaction at the front desk. She had seen the confirmation page on the counter. She had also seen Brandon check in 2 other guests with issues he resolved quickly and smoothly. Maya walked over. "Ma'am, I'm sorry to bother you. Is there anything I can help with while you wait?" Dorothy looked up. "My reservation doesn't appear in their system, even though I have a printed confirmation. They're waiting for the manager." Maya looked at the confirmation page Dorothy showed her. She looked at the confirmation number. Something crossed her face. "Give me 1 moment," she said. She went back to the concierge desk and picked up the internal phone. She spoke quietly to someone for 45 seconds. Then she came back. "Mrs. Callahan, I think there may have been a system migration issue this past weekend. A number of direct bookings didn't import correctly. I'm going to flag this for Mr. Hargrove the moment his meeting breaks." "Thank you, dear." Maya paused. "Can I get you anything while you wait? Coffee, tea, water? Tea would be lovely." "Thank you." Maya went to get it. She was intercepted before she reached the service station by a man named Glenn Hargrove, 47 years old, the hotel's general manager. He was barrel-chested with thinning sandy hair and the voice of someone who had been in hospitality long enough to believe that tone was the same thing as service. "Maya, why are you away from your station?" "The woman in the corner has been waiting nearly 40 minutes. Her reservation has a system import issue from the migration. I was going to get her tea and flag it for you." Hargrove looked at Dorothy across the lobby. He took in the coat, the shoes, the tote bag, the age. "We have a protocol for these situations." She should have been directed to the courtesy phone to call the booking department. "She booked directly through our site, Mr. Hargrove, not through a third party, and the confirmation paper clearly shows I'll handle it. Get back to your desk." Maya stood for a moment with her hands still. Then she went back. Hargrove crossed the lobby. He stood in front of Dorothy's armchair. He did not offer his hand. "Mrs. Callahan, I'm Glenn Hargrove, general manager. I understand you're having a reservation issue." Dorothy looked up at him without moving from the chair. "I have a confirmed 3-night reservation that your front desk agent cannot locate. I've been waiting 40 minutes. These things happen with online bookings. There's sometimes a discrepancy between what a third party shows and what we actually have confirmed in our system. I booked directly through the hotel website," Dorothy said. "I showed your agent the printed confirmation from the Caldwell Grand email address." Hargrove's smile tightened. He glanced at the confirmation page she held out. He glanced at it the way someone glances at a document they have already decided is irrelevant. "I appreciate that you have a printout. But our system is the record of truth here. If the room isn't in our system, the room isn't confirmed. What I'd suggest is—" "What would you suggest?" Dorothy asked. Her voice was still. Very still. I'd suggest we get you set up with a rate for tonight, and if you find evidence that the original booking charged your card, you can dispute that through the appropriate channels. He was telling a 71-year-old woman who had already waited 40 minutes to pay again for a room she had already paid for. Dorothy said nothing for a moment. She looked at Glenn Hargrove the way someone looks at a problem they have seen in many different forms over 71 years of living. "I'd like to see your corporate complaint procedure," she said. Hargrove's smile went thinner. He reached into his jacket and produced a laminated card with a web address and a phone number on it. "You're welcome to reach out to our guest services team." He turned and walked back toward the desk. He said something to Brandon. Brandon glanced over at Dorothy and nodded. Maya watched from the concierge station with her hands flat on the desk and her jaw tight. If you are watching this right now and you know exactly how this kind of moment feels, drop something in the comments. Just a single word. Because what Glenn Hargrove does in the next 10 minutes is so far beyond a policy disagreement that it will make your stomach turn. And if you haven't hit that like button yet, now is the time. Because this story is just getting started. A tour group was arriving. 30 people with matching lanyards flooding through the revolving door at once. The lobby swelled with noise. Hargrove moved toward the front desk to manage the flow. In the middle of the controlled chaos, he stopped near Dorothy's armchair and turned. "Ma'am, I'm going to need this seating area cleared. It's reserved for arriving groups." Dorothy looked at the chairs around her. They were all empty. "I'm waiting to resolve my reservation," she said, "and I understand that. But this area needs to be available for registered hotel guests. If you'd like to continue waiting, there's a seating area near the cafe entrance on the east side." The cafe entrance was 30 feet past the service corridor, out of sight line of the desk, out of the way. The kind of place you send someone when you want them to stop being visible. Dorothy said, "I am a registered hotel guest. Until your reservation is confirmed in our system, I'm afraid I can't verify that." The tour group was moving past them. Some of the travelers slowed slightly, sensing something. A woman in the group, maybe 60 years old, looked at Dorothy and then at Hargrove, and something shifted behind her eyes. Dorothy reached into her tote. She pulled out her phone, not a flip phone, a regular smartphone, but she held it the way older people hold things, carefully, deliberately. "I'm going to make a phone call," she said. "I'll make it right here." Hargrove said, "Ma'am, I've asked you to move, and I've asked you to resolve my reservation." We seem to have reached an impasse. Hargrove's face reddened. In 18 years of hospitality management, he had developed a particular intolerance for guests who did not respond to authority the way guests were supposed to respond to authority. He looked at the corner armchair. He looked at Dorothy's tote on the floor beside it. He reached down and picked up the tote. He carried it 5 feet and set it on the floor near the lobby entrance, near the revolving door, in the draft. The lobby went quieter than it should have for a room full of people. The woman from the tour group stopped walking entirely. A man at the front desk turned around. Maya came out from behind the concierge station, 2 steps, and stopped herself. Dorothy stood up from the chair. She moved to where her tote sat on the floor. She picked it up. She checked the contents without expression. She zipped it closed. Then she sat back down in the corner armchair. Hargrove stared at her. His chest had gone tight. Nobody did this. Nobody simply refused. "Security," he said to Brandon. His voice dropped. Dorothy opened her phone. She pressed one name in her contacts. One name. No searching. No scrolling. Speed dial the way someone dials a number they have called 10,000 times. It rang twice. The voice that answered was deep and unhurried. "Grandma, what's up, Marcus? I'm at the Caldwell Grand in Nashville. I think you should come." A pause. 1 second. "I'm 17 minutes out. Are you all right?" "I'm fine, baby." "No rush. I'm not going anywhere." She closed the phone. She placed it in her tote. She folded her hands in her lap. A security officer named Terrell Washington, 36 years old, came across the lobby and stopped in front of her armchair. He had been working hotel security for 9 years. He had a good read on situations. He looked at Dorothy. He looked at Hargrove, who was standing near the desk with his arms crossed. He looked at Maya, who gave him a very small, very deliberate shake of her head. Terrell looked back at Dorothy. "Ma'ams," he said quietly, "is there something I can help you with?" "I'm waiting for my grandson," Dorothy said. He'll be here shortly. Terrell nodded. He stood where he was. He did not move Dorothy. He did not ask her to leave. He just stood near the armchair, which was its own small act of solidarity. Hargrove caught Terrell's eye and gestured for him to come over. Terrell walked over. The conversation was brief. Hargrove pointed at Dorothy. Terrell shook his head slightly. Hargrove's face went red again. 17 minutes passed. 3 black Escalades rolled down Meridian Avenue. Marcus Callahan was 32 years old, 6'4", and built the way some people are built when they were serious athletes in college and never fully stepped away. He wore a charcoal suit without a tie, white shirt, shoes that cost more than the average person's rent, and he moved through the Caldwell Grand's revolving door with the kind of purpose that makes rooms pay attention before they know why. Behind him came 4 people, 2 men, 2 women, all in business attire, all carrying either tablets or portfolios, all moving in formation without needing to be told how. Every head in the lobby turned. Hargrove looked up from the desk, and his customer service instincts fired automatically. He took 1 step forward. "Good morning. Welcome to the Caldwell Grand. Do you have a?" Marcus did not stop walking. His eyes had already found the corner armchair. He crossed the lobby in 11 strides. He stopped in front of Dorothy and looked at her face, then at the floor where the security officer was still standing nearby, then at the empty cup that Maya had eventually brought, and which sat on the side table now drained. He sat down in the chair across from her. He did not say anything for a moment, just looked at his grandmother. "Grandma, hello, baby. What happened?" Dorothy glanced toward the front desk, toward Hargrove, who had followed Marcus across the lobby and was now standing 6 feet away with his customer service smile rebuilding itself 1 layer at a time. Marcus turned in the chair. He looked at Hargrove with the same expression you might use to read a document you are about to sign or refuse to sign. "You're the manager," he said. "Glenn Hargrove, general manager." "Yes, sir, if this is your—" "You moved her bag," Marcus said. His voice was completely flat. Hargrove's smile faltered. "Sir, there was a situation with the reservation and the seating area needed to be. You picked up a 71-year-old woman's bag and moved it to the door. The lobby had gone the way lobbies go when they sense something real is happening. The checkout line had stopped moving. The tour group, still milling near the elevator bank, had gone quiet. Maya was standing behind the concierge desk with her hands folded. There was a system issue with the reservation," Hargrove said. His voice was finding some of its authority back. "These things unfortunately happen, and our protocol." "What's the name on the reservation?" Marcus said. "Dorothy Callahan," Hargrove said. "But it doesn't appear in our—" "Pull it up on your screen right now," Marcus said. His voice had not risen. It had gotten, if anything, quieter. Hargrove walked to the desk. He typed. He frowned at the screen. He typed again. One of the people behind Marcus, a woman in a dark blazer, stepped forward and opened her tablet. She turned it toward Hargrove. On the screen was a booking record. Room 1407. 3 nights. Direct booking. Confirmed at 6:14 p.m. on the previous Thursday. Rate $347 per night. Charged in full to a card ending in 7291 at time of booking. The name on the card was not Dorothy Callahan. The name on the card was Callahan Capital Group, LLC. Hargrove looked at the tablet. He looked at Marcus. Callahan Capital Group, Marcus said, owns or co-owns 17 commercial properties in the state of Tennessee. One of those properties is a portfolio of 3 hotels. 2 are in Memphis. The third one, he paused, is this building. The lobby went very quiet. Hargrove's mouth opened. The color that had been high in his face began to drain out from the center and move toward the edges until he looked something that had been left in the sun too long. The Caldwell Grand operates as a managed property under a lease and management agreement with Sterling Southern Hospitality, Marcus continued. Sterling Southern holds the management contract. The building itself, the land, the physical structure, everything you walk on and look at every day is owned by Callahan Capital Group, my grandmother's company, which means every month, the company you work for writes a check to the woman whose bag you carried to the draft near the revolving door. Brandon at the front desk put his hand on the counter and did not appear to be breathing. Maya stood very still at the concierge station with tears running directly down her face and her chin lifted. Terrell, the security officer, looked at his shoes for a moment and then looked straight ahead. Hargrove said, "I had no idea." His voice had gone thin and strange. Dorothy stood up from the armchair. She was 5'1" in flat shoes, and she did not need to raise her voice because the room was already listening. "Mr. Hargrove," he looked at her. "I did not come to this lobby today to be recognized. I came because I am visiting my great-granddaughter and my knees ache in cold weather, and I wanted somewhere warm to sit down. That is all. I was not carrying a sign that said Callahan Capital Group. I was not wearing a name tag. I was wearing a gray coat and flat shoes, and I was 71 years old, and I was tired from a flight, and I had a valid reservation that I had printed out the night before because I take care of things." She paused. "You looked at my coat. You looked at my shoes. You made a decision, and that decision had nothing to do with a system migration error." Hargrove's mouth moved. No words came out. "I have been in this industry," Dorothy continued, "for 43 years. I have sat across from men like you in rooms very similar to this one. I know exactly what you saw when you saw me walk through that door. And I want you to know that I am not angry about it. I am tired of it. There is a difference. Angry means it still surprises me. It doesn't." She turned slightly. "Maya." Maya stepped out from behind the concierge desk. "You came and asked if I needed anything. You tried to get me tea. You flagged the issue to your manager even when he sent you back to your station." "Yes, ma'am," Maya said. Her voice was steady even with the tears still on her face. "What is your full name?" "Maya Reeves." "Marcus," Dorothy said. Marcus already had his phone out. "Maya Reeves," he said as he typed. Marcus dialed a number. It rang 4 times. The voice that picked up was cautious and alert, in the way of someone who did not recognize the incoming number, but did recognize that the area code was from somewhere that mattered. "This is Marcus Callahan. I need to speak with whoever, at Sterling Southern Hospitality, authorized Glenn Hargrove's continued employment as general manager of the Caldwell Grand Nashville." There was a pause, then a different kind of pause. "The Caldwell Grand is a managed property of Sterling Southern, yes, and I'm standing in the lobby of that property right now with my grandmother," Marcus said. "Mrs. Dorothy Callahan. Your property manager just moved her bag to the revolving and told her she could not sit in the lobby because her reservation did not appear in your system. The reservation that was booked directly and confirmed and paid in full to a card belonging to Callahan Capital Group. The silence on the other end was the kind of silence that corporate real estate produces when someone realizes that the landlord is on the phone. Mr. Callahan, I am genuinely, I am going to need someone with decision-making authority here in the next 30 minutes. Not on the phone, here, in person." Marcus hung up. Hargrove was still standing in the middle of the lobby. He had not moved in some time. His hands were at his sides. The tour group had mostly dispersed toward the elevators, but 4 or 5 of them were still watching from the far side of the lobby, not pretending to do otherwise. "Sir," Hargrove said, his voice came out wrong, too high. "I have 18 years in this industry. I have a family. I have a mortgage, if you could just allow me to." Marcus looked at him without expression. Then Dorothy said, "Mr. Hargrove." He turned to her. "Do you know why I didn't say anything for the first 40 minutes? He shook his head. "Because I have had this exact conversation in airports and hotel lobbies and restaurants and boardrooms for 50 years. And I have learned that the first 40 minutes tells you everything you need to know about who someone actually is. Not what's when they know they're being watched. What they do when they think no one important is paying attention." She let that sit for a moment. "You failed that test. Not because you made an error with a reservation. Because when a tired old woman in a gray coat sat down in your lobby and waited and said nothing unkind and did nothing wrong, you picked up her bag and moved it to the door." Hargrove looked at the floor. "That is what I will be thinking about when Sterling Southern calls me in the morning to ask how I would like to proceed with the management agreement." His head came up fast. "Dorothy, are you doing this?" Marcus asked quietly. She looked at her grandson. She looked at Hargrove. She looked at Maya across the lobby. She looked at Terrell, the security officer, who had stood near her armchair without being asked, and had refused to move her when his manager told him to. She took a slow breath. "No," she said, "I'm not." She turned to Hargrove again. "You will keep your job today. Not because you deserve to. Because I am 71 years old, and I have spent my whole life building things, instead of tearing them down, and I am not about to change that now. But you will call a staff meeting today, this afternoon, before the evening shift begins. Every person in this building who interacts with guests. And you will tell them what happened this morning. Not a version of it, the actual version, including the bag. Hargrove nodded. His chin was shaking slightly. And you will bring in training. Real training, not a 45-minute video with a quiz at the end. I will have someone from my office send you a curriculum that my company developed after an incident very similar to this one, 22 years ago. When someone on my own team did something just like what you did this morning. It happens everywhere. That does not make it acceptable. She picked up her tote from the floor. She straightened her coat. Now, is my room ready? Brandon at the front desk had already started typing. His hands were moving fast. Room 1407, he said. It's ready, Mrs. Callahan. I'll have a key card for you in 30 seconds, and I'd like to personally, Dorothy said quietly. Thank you, Brandon. Just her name for him. Just those 2 words. The kindness in them was more disorienting to him than anger would have been. The woman from the tour group who had stopped walking during the confrontation came across the lobby. She was 63, from Cincinnati, wearing a lanyard that said Midwest Teachers Association Annual Conference. Ma'am, she said, I'm sorry, I watched all of it and I didn't say a word, and I should have. Dorothy looked at her. You're saying it now, that matters. The woman nodded and went back to her group. A man from the front desk line, 40 years old, suit and roller bag, walked over. I saw what he did with your bag. I should have said something. You're saying it now, Dorothy said. One more. Then another. Small migrations of people across the lobby marble, one at a time, coming to stand near the corner armchair where Dorothy Callahan was still standing with her tote and her gray coat and her flat, worn shoes. Each one of them was a mirror that Hargrove could not look away from. Maya came to Dorothy with a fresh cup of tea, properly steeped on a small tray. Dorothy took it with both hands. This is the first thing anyone has brought me since I walked in here this morning, she said. I'm sorry it took so long, ma'am. Don't apologize for what you didn't do. You tried. Maya hesitated. Mrs. Callahan. Can I ask you something? Go ahead. When he moved your bag, when he moved it to the door, you sat back down. You didn't react. How do you do that? Dorothy held the teacup between both palms and let the warmth come through. When I was 29 years old, I was trying to get a commercial loan for the first property I ever purchased. The banker told me I was a credit risk, and that he'd seen my type come through his office before, and they always defaulted. My type, she said the words without heat. I was wearing a coat very much like this one. I sat in that chair across from him and I thought, I can scream, or I can go by the building and come back. She looked at Maya. I came back. He had retired by then. But the branch manager who replaced him used our company for all of his personal banking for the next 14 years. She took a sip of tea. Reaction costs you energy you need for other things. That is the only reason. Maya stood quietly for a moment. Then she said, my application for the assistant director of guest experience position has been sitting with HR for 6 weeks. Dorothy looked at her. Marcus, Dorothy said. He was already listening. Maya Reeves, Callahan Capital Group Management Track. Add it to the list from today. Marcus looked at Maya and nodded once. Write down your contact information and give it to one of my team before we go upstairs. Maya's hand went slightly unsteady. She steadied it. Yes, sir. The Sterling Southern Regional Vice President arrived in 39 minutes, not 30. His name was Todd Bertrand, 51, and he had driven from a lunch meeting in Brentwood with a sauce stain on his tie that he had not noticed because he had been on the phone the entire drive over, and his hands were not entirely steady when he came through the revolving door. He found Marcus Callahan standing near the concierge desk, and Dorothy Callahan seated in the corner armchair with a teacup and the patience of mountains. Mrs. Callahan, Mr. Callahan, Todd shook hands. I want to express directly and without qualification how deeply wrong what happened here today was. There is no protocol, no policy, no circumstance under which a guest is treated this way. Full stop, Marcus said. We'd like to discuss the management agreement renewal. Todd nodded. Of course, whenever works for you, Dorothy said. It works now. She said it simply, without sharpness, the way someone states a fact about the weather. Todd looked around, then pulled a chair from a nearby seating cluster. He sat down across from Dorothy. Marcus sat beside his grandmother. The four-person team arranged themselves standing behind them. Terrell, the security officer, had gone back to his post. But he stood a little differently than he had that morning. An hour and 14 minutes later, Marcus walked with Dorothy to the elevator. He carried her tote. She had declined the luggage assistance from the front desk, but she had allowed her grandson. In the elevator, just the two of them, she looked at the numbers lighting up. "You could have shut the whole thing down," Marcus said. "Management agreement, lease, all of it." She watched the numbers. "Why didn't you?" She was quiet for a moment. "Because there are 47 people who work in this building, and most of them did nothing wrong this morning. Brandon made a bad call at the desk, and Glenn Hargrove has been building a culture of performance over people for 18 years, and that is on him, and on Sterling Southern for letting it happen. But Terrell stood next to my chair when he didn't have to. Maya came over and asked if I needed anything. Someone in the kitchen made this tea correctly." She held up the cup she had carried from the lobby. "There are 47 people in this building, and I am not punishing 47 people because of two." She let the elevator settle on the 14th floor. "Power is not what you can destroy. It is what you choose not to." The doors opened. She walked down the hall to room 1407, and opened the door and set her tote on the luggage rack, and sat on the edge of the bed and took off her shoes. The Nashville afternoon light came through the curtains in long strips of gold. She had a recital to attend at 6 o'clock. Her great-granddaughter was playing violin for the first time in front of an audience, and she was not going to miss a single note. 3 months later, the Caldwell Grand Nashville had the highest guest satisfaction scores it had recorded in 7 years. The training curriculum Dorothy Callahan had sent over was adopted across 6 other Sterling Southern properties by the end of the quarter. Maya Reeves began the Callahan Capital Management Track Program in January. Terrell Washington received a formal commendation in his personnel file, the first of his 9 years in security. Glenn Hargrove resigned in November. In his exit interview, he cited personal reasons. But Brandon Hewitt, who took over as interim manager while the search ran, told the new hire on his first day one story. Just one. About a woman in a gray coat who sat in the corner armchair and waited and won without raising her voice. And the woman in the tour group from Cincinnati, the one who had stopped walking and come over to apologize, she told the story to her classroom of 7th graders the following Monday. She had been teaching for 26 years, and she told them it was one of the most important things she had ever seen. She did not have a word for what Dorothy Callahan had done. One of her students, a 12-year-old girl in the front row, raised her hand and said, "It's called dignity." And the teacher wrote it on the board in capital letters and left it there for the rest of the week. Dorothy Callahan could have walked into that lobby and announced who she was. She could have placed her company card on the counter in the first 60 seconds and watched every door open. She had that option. She has always had that option. She doesn't use it. Not because she is trying to trap anyone or teach anyone a lesson, but because she decided a long time ago, in a banker's office in 1981, with $11 in her checking account, that her name would open doors. Not her coat, not her shoes, not the car she arrived in, her name, her work. The 43 years of deciding every single day to build something instead of wait for someone to hand it to her. The woman in the gray coat owns the building. But she would have deserved the tea whether she did or not. That is the whole lesson. That is the only lesson. If this story stayed with you, subscribe. Turn on the bell. Because in the next story, the person who walks through the door doesn't offer grace. What they bring is entirely different. And when you see what they built with their patience, you will understand why some people are powerful in ways you can see, and some are powerful in ways you never will. Not until it is too late to pretend you didn't notice. Every villain falls, the humble always rise. Disclaimer: this story is a work of fiction created for entertainment and educational purposes. Names, characters, and incidents are entirely fictional. Any resemblance to real persons, living or deceased, or actual events is purely coincidental. This story is intended to inspire reflection on human dignity, respect, and empathy.